Reason 4. Emotional unavailability feels like strength. Here's a hard truth. Many women mistake emotional detachment for strength. They confuse coldness with confidence, distance with dominance, and unpredictability with power. And that's why men who are emotionally unavailable often seem more attractive than those who openly express their feelings. The Stoics believed that mastering emotions was one of the highest forms of self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And while this philosophy was meant to cultivate inner peace, many men unknowingly use it to their advantage, whether intentionally or not. When a man is emotionally controlled, when he doesn't let his feelings dictate his actions, he's seen as powerful. He's not easily shaken, not easily influenced, and that kind of steadiness is rare. But when a man is overly expressive, constantly seeking reassurance, or too emotionally reactive, he's often seen as weak. Now, this doesn't mean that being cold or distant is truly strong. In reality, emotional unavailability is often a sign of unresolved trauma or fear of vulnerability. But perception matters, and to many women, a man who keeps his emotions guarded appears more mysterious, more in control, and ultimately more desirable. Why? Because unpredictability fuels attraction. When a man is emotionally open, a woman knows exactly where she stands. But when he holds back, when he keeps his feelings under control, it creates a sense of uncertainty. And as we discussed earlier, uncertainty is addictive. This is why emotionally unavailable men often leave such a lasting impact. They don't give constant reassurance. They don't wear their hearts on their sleeves. And because of that, women find themselves trying to unlock them, trying to win their affection. The very fact that these men don't make their feelings obvious makes them seem more valuable. But here's where Stoic wisdom comes in. True strength isn't about emotional detachment. It's about emotional mastery. The goal isn't to shut down or become distant just to appear attractive. It's to develop such a deep level of self-control that you don't need to prove your emotions to anyone. You express them when necessary, but you're never ruled by them. And the irony: men who truly master their emotions, not repress them but control them, are the ones who naturally become the most attractive. Because real power isn't about withholding love to create desire. It's about being so secure in yourself that you don't need external validation at all. Reason 5. The need for self-validation. People want what they feel they have to earn. And when it comes to attraction, this principle is even more powerful. Women, just like men, seek validation. But the validation that feels the most rewarding isn't the kind that's given freely. It's the kind they have to work for. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus once said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance." In other words, our emotions aren't just reactions to events. They're reactions to how we perceive those events. And when a woman interacts with a man who is emotionally detached, she doesn't just feel ignored. She perceives his indifference as a sign that she hasn't earned his affection yet. This is where the need for self-validation kicks in. If a man gives her all the attention and affection up front, she doesn't have to do anything to earn it. There's no emotional investment on her part. But if his validation is hard to get, if he doesn't immediately shower her with praise, then she has to put in effort. She has to prove herself, and that effort creates attachment. Think about a time when you had to work for something, whether it was a job, a personal achievement, or even a relationship. The more effort you put in, the more valuable it felt. That's because human psychology ties effort to worth. When something is easily obtained, the mind assumes it must not be valuable. But when something requires work, it's seen as rare, as important, as worth it. This is why so many women chase after emotionally unavailable men. It's not that they want to be undervalued. It's that their minds are wired to see value in what they have to earn. And when a man doesn't seem to care, when his validation is rare, her brain interprets it as high value. She starts seeking his approval, trying to prove that she's worthy of his attention. But here's the lesson from Stoicism. Self-worth should never come from external validation. The moment you rely on someone else's approval, you give away your power. And while many women fall into the trap of seeking validation from emotionally distant men, the truth is, that cycle leads to nothing but frustration and insecurity. For men, understanding this is crucial. The goal isn't to manipulate women by withholding affection. It's to recognize that true confidence doesn't come from giving or receiving validation. It comes from being secure in yourself. And when a man operates from that place of self-sufficiency, he naturally becomes more attractive. Not because he's playing games, but because he genuinely doesn't need to prove anything. Reason 6. The drama creates excitement. Many people confuse emotional chaos with passion. And this is one of the biggest reasons why women are drawn to men who don't value them. Because those relationships create drama. And drama, whether we like to admit it or not, can feel intoxicating. The Stoics warned against this kind of emotional volatility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood that true happiness comes from inner stability, not from chasing emotional highs and lows. But in modern relationships, many people mistake emotional instability for excitement. Think about it. The nice, stable guy who treats a woman well. He provides comfort, but there's no unpredictability. No emotional roller coaster, no drama. Meanwhile, the man who is emotionally distant, who is inconsistent with his affection, who sometimes makes her feel special and other times makes her question everything, he's the one who keeps her on edge. And that uncertainty triggers an addictive emotional response. This is why toxic relationships can be so hard to escape. The constant ups and downs create a cycle of emotional dependency. One moment, he's cold and indifferent, and she feels anxious. Then, suddenly, he gives her a moment of attention, and she feels relief. That pattern mimics the same psychological effect as addiction. The brain starts craving the highs, even if it means enduring the lows. This is why Stoicism teaches emotional discipline. It warns against getting caught up in the fleeting nature of emotions, especially when those emotions are based on external events. The Stoics knew that true happiness doesn't come from chasing excitement. It comes from inner peace. But many women, especially those who haven't yet developed emotional self-awareness, confuse peace with boredom. They don't realize that a healthy relationship shouldn't feel like an emotional war. Instead, they chase the thrill of unpredictability, mistaking it for passion. For men, this is an important lesson. If a woman only seems attracted to you when you're distant, if she only values you when you create emotional turmoil, then she's not in love with you. She's in love with the drama. And that's not real connection. The strongest relationships aren't built on chasing highs and avoiding lows. They're built on stability, trust, and mutual respect. And while that might not sound as thrilling as a roller coaster ride of emotions, it's the only thing that leads to real, lasting fulfillment. Conclusion: mastering yourself is the key. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Are women doomed to chase men who don't value them? Are men supposed to play the game of indifference to attract women? Not at all. The real answer lies in something much deeper: self-mastery. The Stoics never taught people to manipulate others. They never preached playing hard to get or withholding affection as a strategy. What they did teach, however, is that true power comes from within. A man who is completely in control of himself, his emotions, his desires, his actions, is naturally attractive. Not because he's trying to be, but because his energy is different from the masses. He doesn't need external validation. He doesn't need to chase. He doesn't need to prove his worth. And because of that, he stands apart. This is why so many women are drawn to men who seem to not care. It's not because they want to be mistreated. It's because self-sufficiency is magnetizing. A man who is independent, who moves through life with purpose, who isn't constantly seeking approval, he's rare. And rarity creates value. But here's where many men go wrong. Instead of genuinely developing themselves, they try to fake indifference. They act aloof, they play games, they withhold affection, thinking that's the key to attraction. But fake confidence is easy to see through. A man who pretends to be indifferent still needs validation. He's just trying to get it in a different way. The real solution? Become the kind of man who doesn't need to chase. Not because you're trying to appear valuable, but because you truly are valuable. Invest in yourself. Develop emotional mastery. Build a life that excites you. Pursue your goals, your passions, your purpose, not to impress anyone, but because it genuinely fulfills you. Because here's the truth: when you truly value yourself, others will naturally value you too. When you don't rely on external validation, when you carry yourself with quiet confidence, when you don't feel the need to constantly prove your worth, you won't have to chase. The right people will recognize your worth, not because you forced them to, but because it was undeniable. That's what Stoic wisdom teaches us. Not to manipulate, not to play games, but to cultivate such a strong sense of self that attraction, respect, and admiration follow effortlessly. Stop chasing, start mastering yourself. And watch how everything changes.